The morning sun slid quietly over the rooftops of suburban Austin, painting the small houses in pale gold, as if trying to convince the world that everything here was peaceful. In the kitchen of a modest, white-walled home at the end of a sleepy cul-de-sac, the soft sizzle of scrambled eggs filled the silence. The smell of coffee drifted through the air, warm and comforting, at least to anyone who didn't know better. If a stranger peeked through the window, they would think this was just another loving couple starting their day. But Aurora Lee knew the truth. She wasn't a cherished wife in this house. She was the maid. Brush the crumbs, toast the bread, keep quiet. That was her role. And the man she cooked for every morning, the man who slept beside her every night, had no idea that the woman standing barefoot in his kitchen was a billionaire heiress, hiding a life he couldn't even imagine. He also didn't know that this quiet morning would soon become the opening scene of his downfall. Aurora plated the eggs with practiced movements, placing toast and coffee beside them. Her t-shirt was stretched at the collar, her leggings faded from too many washes. She stared at the breakfast for a moment, trying to remember the last time she had made it with joy instead of obligation. The house felt too clean, too orderly, like a hotel room she worked in rather than her own home. Footsteps approached. Ryan Cole emerged from the bedroom in a tailored slate blue shirt and dark slacks that fit him as if a personal stylist had sculpted them onto his body. His cologne, something designer and unnecessarily strong, hit her first, swallowing the scent of her cooking whole. He glanced at the plate and immediately wrinkled his nose. Scrambled eggs again. Aurora forced a small smile. "You liked them yesterday." "Yeah, yesterday," he muttered, pulling out a chair. "You know what people at my office eat: avocado toast, chia bowls, anything that doesn't look like it came out of a diner." He didn't say thank you. He didn't ask how she slept. He didn't kiss her cheek the way he used to, back when she still meant something more to him than background furniture. He just ate, barely tasting the food, scrolling through his phone with the same attention he used to give her. Aurora sat across from him, with her tea every sip quiet, measured. She had learned to take up less space, to keep the peace, to avoid the rising tension that lived in the walls of their home. Ryan's phone buzzed. A small, satisfied smirk crossed his face. When he placed the phone on the table, the screen lit up before going dark again, but not fast enough to hide the preview. B. Last night was perfect. Same time after rehearsal. Aurora looked away, pretending she hadn't seen it. She had gotten good at that, turning her eyes from the truth until her heart could catch up. He finished half the plate, then pushed it away. "I'm heading out. Big day. The company's announcing details about the annual gala. It's going to be huge for my career." He straightened his tie in the hallway mirror, admiring himself. "Make sure the house looks decent when I get back." He didn't wait for her reply. The door shut. The sound of his car faded down the street. Silence swept in like a tide. Aurora collected his barely touched plate. The cold eggs clung to the fork, like something abandoned, forgotten, just like she felt. She tossed the food rinsed. The dish dried her hands slowly, breathing through the familiar ache pressing against her ribs. When the kitchen was spotless again, she walked into the living room. A simple bookshelf stood against the wall, the kind you buy on sale from a warehouse store. She pressed her fingers against a specific corner of it, and the back panel clicked open with a soft metallic sound. Inside was a sleek lockbox. She opened it carefully. Stock certificates, ownership files, a corporate access card with her photograph. Luminara Holdings, sole owner and CEO, Aurora Lee. She traced her name with her thumb, exhaling. She had hidden her identity for years, burying the heiress in CEO deep beneath this quiet, forgettable life. She had given up her crown once for love. But love, at least the kind Ryan offered, had turned out to be nothing but a cage dressed in pretty promises. Her phone vibrated. A message from Ryan. "Don't forget gala announcement today. Big things coming for me." Aurora closed the lockbox and slid the panel shut. He thought the gala would change his career. He didn't know it would change his entire life. The sun had already risen high. By the time Aurora stepped outside, the late morning heat, settling over the quiet neighborhood like a heavy blanket. Kids biked past. Dogs barked in distant yards. Sprinklers hissed across manicured lawns. Ordinary sounds of an ordinary suburb where no one knew a billionaire heiress lived, disguised among them. As Aurora walked down the sidewalk with a grocery bag in her hand, she looked like any tired woman running errands, not someone who once graced magazine covers and boardrooms in Los Angeles. No one here knew how far she had fallen or how far she had run. No one knew that behind her calm smile was a storm still brewing from a heartbreak so sharp it had nearly cleaved her life in half. Before Ryan, before this toxic marriage, there had been another man. A man who taught her why love could feel like drowning, why silence felt safer than trust. His face returned to her, now in flashes, like old film reels flickering to life, champagne dinners, stolen kisses, and the sickening truth that had shattered everything. His name was Adrian Hale. Adrian with his movie star smile and promises sweeter than wine. Adrian who had called her my future wife and my everything. For nearly 2 years, Aurora had believed him. She bought him the car he needed for work, paid off his debts, even funded his dream startup. She thought she was helping the man she loved build a future with her. Instead, she had been financing his escape from her. She could still remember the night she found out. A week before their wedding, she had walked into his loft with a bottle of champagne to surprise him. What she walked into instead was a conversation that ripped her heart out. "Of course I'll marry her," Adrian had laughed into his phone. "Once her money becomes my money, I'll finally be set. After that, I'll figure out how to get rid of her without losing the cash." Aurora had dropped the bottle. The crash echoed through the loft. Adrian's face, when he turned, had said everything. That night, she didn't throw a fit. She didn't scream. She walked out, canceled the wedding, shut down his access to her accounts, and ended the relationship before he could spin another lie. But the damage was done. The world felt predatory. Every charming smile felt like a trick. Every romantic word felt like bait. So she ran from Los Angeles, from the spotlight, from the heiress life that made her a target. She moved to Austin, bought the small house, locked away her designer clothes, created a new quiet existence. She took a part-time job at a small neighborhood bookstore, shelved paperbacks, recommended romance novels to college students, and made just enough to look normal. She became ordinary, and for a while, she believed that might be enough, that a quiet life could be a safe life. Then Ryan walked into the bookstore one slow autumn afternoon, asking for a marketing book. He had been warm, funny, a little clumsy, full of stories about big dreams and small beginnings. He listened when she spoke. He made her laugh. And most importantly, he didn't know who she was. He didn't look at her with dollar signs in his eyes. So when he asked her out, she said yes. When he began dreaming aloud about the future, she let herself dream too. And when he proposed simple sweet under a string of fairy lights in the park, Aurora convinced herself that this time would be different. That this man wanted her, not her billion-dollar shadow. The only thing she asked before they married was that he consider leaving Luminera Media, a subsidiary of Luminera Holdings. "I fought too hard to get in," he'd said. "Luminera is where I belong. You wouldn't understand. It's everyone's dream company. Back then it sounded noble. Now it sounded tragically, stupidly ironic. She hadn't forced him. For 2 years of their marriage, she kept her secret and waited to see whether he would love the woman or the illusion. She had her answer now. The office lights in downtown Austin always looked beautiful. From a distance, warm squares of gold, glowing across the glass towers like stars caught in steel. But up close, inside those walls, the shine often hid something acidic. Aurora learned this the first time she stopped by Luminera Media to drop off Ryan's forgotten lunch. What she saw that day would replay in her mind for months. Ryan, laughing too loudly, leaning too closely, smiling too widely at a woman who was not his wife. A smile he never gave her anymore. A touch he hadn't offered in months. That woman had honey blonde hair, immaculate eyeliner, and a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her name, Aurora would later learn, was Bianca Hayes. That moment, brief, almost insignificant, was the beginning of the unraveling. It was the first real confirmation that the man she trusted was becoming a stranger in a suit. At home, the signs multiplied. Ryan dressed sharper, stayed out later, showered as soon as he came back, tilted his phone away when he texted, smelled like perfume that didn't belong to Aurora. One night, when he came home at 11, she caught a faint smear of lipstick near his collar, a color she never wore. The confirmation was silent, but unmistakable. Her husband, the man she cooked for, supported, trusted, was becoming the villain of her story. And it wasn't just an affair. It was ambition. Bianca wasn't just a mistress. She was a strategic ally in Ryan's climb. They stayed late on projects, took client meetings together, posted pictures from company conferences where they stood a little too close. The way Ryan talked about her, Bianca gets it. Bianca understands the corporate world. Bianca matches my energy, was another betrayal all by itself. Aurora watched it all with horrifying clarity. She had been used before. She had been deceived before. But this time, she wasn't just a woman with a broken heart. She was the hidden owner of the empire he worshipped. A storm was coming for Ryan Cole. He just didn't know it yet. The news came crashing into the house on a Thursday evening, wrapped in Ryan's electrified excitement and ego. Aurora heard his car door slam, heard his hurried steps, and felt the rush of his self-importance enter the living room. Before he even spoke, he burst through the doorway like a man who believed the universe had finally crowned him king. "You will not believe the day I had," he announced, tossing his keys onto the counter. He didn't kiss her, didn't hug her, just went straight for the fridge, grabbed a bottle of sparkling water, and cracked it open like a victory champagne. Aurora stirred the simmering pasta sauce on the stove. "What happened?" Ryan leaned back against the counter, basking in his own dramatic pause. "The senior team is seriously considering me for a major promotion," he said. "The Luminera annual gala next week. That's my moment. They're watching me. This is where I show them I'm more than mid-level." "That's great," Aurora said softly. "I'm happy for you." "You should be," he replied. "Because if I rise, we rise." He said it like a promise, but what came next sounded more like a sentence. "We need to talk about the gala," he continued, eyes skimming her faded t-shirt and leggings. "Specifically, how you're going to show up." Aurora's fingers tightened around the wooden spoon. "What do you mean?" Ryan sighed, as if this were exhausting for him. "Look, the people attending aren't random coworkers. These are directors, executives, investors. They're polished. Their wives are polished. They fit the image. I can't afford any missteps right now." "And I'm a misstep?" Aurora asked quietly. He gestured vaguely at her. "You don't exactly fit the aesthetic, Aurora. You dress like someone's babysitter. No designer anything. No hair appointments. No nails. There's nothing executive about you. The words stung, but she stayed still. So here's how this is going to work, he continued, slipping into the clipped managerial tone he used with interns. For the gala, you'll wear something simple, preferably dark. No bright colors, nothing flashy, nothing that draws attention. One of your cheap black dresses is fine, as long as it doesn't look expensive. She swallowed. I have other, not those, he snapped. And no jewelry. No necklace, no earrings, no bracelet. Just your basic watch. You'll look modest, invisible. Background. Background. He was turning her into scenery. What am I supposed to do once we're there? She asked. Ryan shrugged. Stand near the buffet or in the back. Don't mingle with my bosses. Don't introduce yourself unless someone asks. If they do smile, answer briefly, and don't overshare. The less you say, the better. Her heart sank, and most importantly, his gaze hardened. Don't act like my wife. Not tomorrow. Not during the gala. Keep your distance. I'll be networking. I can't have people thinking I'm weighed down with domestic baggage. Domestic baggage. The phrase lodged in her chest like shrapnel. He checked his phone, already moving on. Trust me. This is for both of us. Once I move up, our lives will change. You just have to play your part for one night. He opened his laptop on the couch, the glow reflecting off his self-satisfied smile. Conversation over. Aurora walked to the bedroom in silence. The moment the door clicked shut, her legs finally gave out, and she sat heavily on the edge of the bed, staring at their wedding photo on the nightstand. Two people smiling under fairy lights' hands, clasped, eyes full of promises. She barely recognized them. Her phone buzzed. Bianca, can't wait for the gala. You're going to shine, Ryan. We will. Aurora stared at the message until the words blurred. Then quietly, she said to the empty room, I won't be your background anymore. Not at the gala. Not ever again. Aurora didn't sleep that night. The house lay in darkness, quiet and unmoving. But her mind was a storm raging behind calm eyes. She lay awake beside Ryan, listening to his soft snores, the same sounds that once comforted her. Now, they grated against raw nerves. Don't act like my wife. Stand in the back. Don't embarrass me. Domestic baggage. By the time the moon slid behind the clouds, something inside her had shifted. There was nothing left to salvage. No love, no respect, no marriage. The man, lying inches away from her, didn't see a partner. He saw a tool, an inconvenience, an invisible maid with a ring. And instead of breaking her, the truth sharpened her. Before dawn, she slipped out of bed and padded down the hall, past the kitchen, still smelling faintly of last night's dinner, past the living room, where his jacket lay tossed over a chair. She reached the bookshelf, opened the hidden panel, and took out the lockbox. Her past, her power, her truth. Back at her small desk, she opened her laptop and connected to a private, encrypted line. It rang twice before the call connected. Daniel Bennett appeared on screen, silver hair, dark suit, sharp eyes. Chief Operating Officer of Luminara Holdings, her father's most trusted ally. The only person inside the company who knew the full truth. Miss Lee, he said, concern threading his voice. It's unusual to hear from you at this hour. Is something wrong? Everything is wrong, Aurora said quietly. She told him everything. The conditions Ryan had set. The mistress he paraded around the office. The way he planned to bring Aurora into the gala, not as a wife, but as a silent prop to be pushed into the shadows. By the time she finished, Bennett's jaw was clenched so tight she could see the muscle jump in his cheek. He instructed the owner of this company to stand by the buffet and pretend to be his maid, he demanded. He called me baggage, Aurora whispered. Her voice trembled once, then steadied, and he introduced Bianca as his future wife in front of his team. Bennett exhaled sharply and stood pacing behind his desk. "This is unacceptable. You should not attend that gala at all. Let me handle this. I can have security remove him from the company before he even sets foot in the ballroom." Aurora shook her head. "No," she said. "I'm going." Bennett paused. "Aurora, I need to see how far he'll go," she said. "I need to see it with my own eyes. I'm tired of hearing men explain away their cruelty behind closed doors. If he wants to humiliate me publicly, then the truth can be revealed publicly too." Silence fell between them. Then Bennett's expression shifted from fury to respect. "What would you like me to prepare?" he asked. "Everything," Aurora replied. "Coordinate with the event team. The MC, security, the board. When I send you a message tomorrow night, the stage is mine." Bennett nodded once. "Consider it done." They ended the call. Aurora returned the lockbox to its hiding place, but she no longer felt like a woman crawling back into the shadows. She walked to the window and watched the sunrise spill over Austin, splitting the sky into bands of gold and crimson. She wrapped her arms around herself and took a long, shaky breath. Her phone buzzed on the counter. "Ryan, don't forget to iron my suit for the gala." For the first time in months, Aurora smiled. Not sadly, not bitterly, sharply. A storm was coming, and she would be the one controlling the thunder. The Lone Star Grand Hotel towered over downtown Austin like a monument of glass and pride, its ballroom glowing from within, as if the night itself had been set on fire. Limousines lined the entrance. Guests in glittering gowns and sharp tuxedos stepped onto the carpet beneath chandeliers large enough to swallow a car. It was a world Aurora once belonged to, a world she had walked away from thinking peace was worth the sacrifice. Tonight, she was walking back in on her own terms. She stepped out of Ryan's car, several paces behind him. Her dress, plain and black, its fabric rougher than anything she used to wear. No jewelry, no designer heels. Her makeup was minimal, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She had dressed exactly the way he asked her to, so when she destroyed him, there would be no doubt who had written the script. Ryan strode ahead, without looking back, soaking in the lights, the attention, the greetings from colleagues and managers. He didn't see Aurora pause at the base of the hotel steps, breathe in and lift her chin. The night was young. The stage was set. Behind those doors, her entire empire waited, without knowing its queen was already here. Inside the ballroom was a masterpiece of elegance. Golden light spilled from the chandelier overhead, catching on glassware and sequins. Jazz music curled around the hum of conversation and the soft chime of crystal. Everywhere Aurora looked, she saw her father's taste, a detail in the ceiling, molding the deep blue of the table linens, the family crest etched subtly into the glass doors. Her legacy, her blood, her company. Ryan didn't slow down. "Go stand near the buffet," he muttered over his shoulder as they crossed the threshold. "And remember, don't make this about you." He disappeared into the crowd. Aurora walked toward the darker corner near the buffet tables, her steps quiet, unhurried. She picked up a glass of sparkling water and stood beside a tall marble pillar. From there, she had a clear view of the entire ballroom. That's when she saw Bianca. The woman entered like she believed the chandelier had been hung just to crown her. A crimson dress hugged her frame, slit high at the thigh. Her blonde hair was swept up into an elegant knot, diamonds glittering at her ears. Heads turned. Bianca smiled, practiced, dazzling, hungry. Ryan's face lit up the moment he saw her. Aurora watched him weave through the crowd. Watched the way he touched Bianca's elbow, the way Bianca tilted her face up to him like they were in their own private orbit. He poured her champagne. She brushed a hand down his tie. Their faces leaned closer than colleagues ever needed to. People noticed. A few junior employees exchanged looks. Someone whispered behind a napkin. A senior manager frowned. Ryan and Bianca didn't care. They acted like they owned the night. Aurora sipped her water and watched. She noticed something else too. People were looking at her, not because of her dress, not because of any jewelry. She wore none. It was the way she carried herself. Still, composed. Head just a little higher than you'd expect from a woman in plain black standing alone. There was a gravity to her presence that the background corner couldn't disguise. "Is she from finance?" someone murmured nearby. "She doesn't look like staff," another responded. "She looks important." The whispers swelled and faded as the band played on. Across the room near the stage, Daniel Bennett stood with a cluster of senior executives pretending to listen to the VP while keeping Aurora in his peripheral vision. Their eyes met once. "Everything is ready," his nod said. Aurora's breath stayed steady. All she had to do was wait. It happened halfway through the night as the music dipped and conversation grew louder. Ryan stood in a small circle of senior managers, laughing a little too loudly at a joke that wasn't funny. Bianca clung to his arm, her laughter sparkling like broken glass, her red dress catching every glint of light. Aurora could see the way Ryan straightened whenever an executive glanced his way, the way he angled his body so they'd see Bianca too. He wasn't just courting her, he was auditioning them, presenting Bianca as evidence that he belonged in their world. Mr. Hart, a senior vice president from Luminera Media, glanced across the ballroom and paused. "Ryan," he said casually, "who's that woman over there? The one in the black dress, by the buffet?" The question drifted across the group like a spotlight turning. Aurora felt dozens of eyes shift toward her. Ryan stiffened. For an instant, something like panic flashed across his face. He could have walked over. He could have said, "That's my wife." He didn't. Adrenaline, pride, and ego collided in his chest. He chose wrong. He laughed softly, dismissively. "Oh, that's nobody important." Mr. Hart frowned. "Nobody I assumed she came with you." Ryan straightened his jacket. "She works for us. She's my maid," he said lightly, as if it were a charming detail. "She just came by in case we needed extra help." The word struck the room like a slap. Somebody choked on a drink. Bianca's lips curved into a victorious smirk. Across the ballroom, Aurora's fingers tightened around the stem of her glass until her knuckles turned white. Maid. He had said it. He had reduced his wife to hired help to elevate himself. Ryan, sensing he had gone far, but not far enough, wrapped an arm around Bianca's waist. "Actually," he added with a proud grin, "Mr. Hart, let me introduce someone truly important. This is Bianca, my future wife." Not a joke, not a slip, a declaration. Silence rippled outward from their small circle. Heads turned, eyes sharpened, gossip coiled like smoke in the air. Aurora felt something inside her, something soft and loyal and tired, finally die. She did not break. Instead, something new rose in its place. Cold, clean, sharp, a lioness opening her eyes. She set her empty glass on the table beside her. Then she looked across the ballroom and locked eyes with Ryan. For the first time, he really saw her, not as a blur in the corner, not as a convenient appliance, as a woman standing perfectly still, back straight, gaze ice calm. A flicker of unease passed through his expression. He smothered it quickly. Aurora turned away, walking toward the hallway that led to the restrooms and staff rooms. The crowd parted without knowing why. In the quiet corridor, away from the music and chandeliers, she leaned against the wall and finally allowed a tear to fall. Not many, just enough to let the last of the pain drain out. She thought of Adrian, of the champagne bottle on the floor, of Ryan, of the word "maid" echoing in a room she owned. Her chest hurt, but she did not crumble. She wiped her cheeks with steady fingers, pulled out her phone, and tapped out a message to Bennett. It's time. Her thumb hit send. The storm had officially begun. When Aurora stepped back into the ballroom, everything felt sharper. The light, the music, the weight of 1,000 curious eyes. Her hair was no longer pulled tightly back. She had slipped out the elastic in the restroom and let it fall down her back in dark waves. She still wore the same plain black dress. No diamonds, no designer label on display. But something had changed. Her posture, her walk, her aura. People turned their conversations, dissolving into whispers. Who is she? She looks different. She looks like she belongs up there. Aurora didn't look at Ryan. She didn't need to. She walked straight toward the stage, and the ballroom seemed to widen around her, the crowd instinctively clearing a path. Near the steps, Bennett was waiting. He took one look at her and inclined his head. "Everything is ready, Miss Lee," he murmured. "Thank you," she replied. On stage, the MC was in the middle of announcing raffle winners, his voice cheerful and oblivious. Bennett leaned in, whispered a few quick words in his ear, and handed him a folded document. The MC's face drained of color. He nodded nervously, grabbed the microphone, and cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he stammered, we have a special announcement before we proceed." The band cut off mid-note. Conversations quieted. The chandeliers hummed softly overhead. Aurora climbed the steps. The MC, looking as though he'd just seen a ghost, handed her the microphone with both hands and practically fled the stage. The spotlight that had washed over the ballroom narrowed, locking onto her. The rest of the room dimmed. Ryan's heart slammed in his chest. Bianca's fingers dug into his arm. Aurora stood alone in the center of the stage, the plain black dress cutting a stark, elegant shape under the bright light. She let the silence stretch. "Good evening," she said finally. Her voice was clear and calm, moving through the ballroom like water. "Thank you for coming to the Luminara annual gala. Tonight we're here to celebrate vision, hard work, and the values this company was built on." Murmurs spread. "Who is she? Did we miss an introduction? Is she new?" Aurora's gaze swept across the sea of faces. Confusion, curiosity, a few flickers of recognition from older directors who had once seen a younger version of her in her father's office. Her eyes found Ryan. He looked pale, eyes wide, lips parted. She held his gaze for a beat. "For some time now," she continued, "there have been rumors about the founder's daughter. Some said she disappeared. Some said she wanted nothing to do with the company. Some said she was just a name on legal documents." She took one step forward. "The truth is simpler. I wanted to see this company and the people within it, not from the top, but from the ground." Ryan swallowed hard. Bianca's hand trembled. "I wanted to know who worked for this company, because they believed in it," Aurora said, "and who used it as a ladder to climb over others." Silence hummed. Every eye was locked on her. She drew in one slow breath. "My name," she said, "is Aurora Lee." The name slammed into the room like a wave. Gasps erupted from every corner. A glass shattered somewhere at the back. Several older executives rose, halfway from their chairs, recognition and shock colliding in their faces. Aurora let the shock wash through them before she dropped the final match. "I am the sole owner and chief executive officer of Luminara Holdings," she said, "and the ultimate controlling shareholder of Luminara Media." If silence could have a sound, it would have been this moment. Ryan felt the floor tilt under his feet. The woman whose breakfast he criticized each morning. The woman he'd called plain, unambitious baggage. The woman he had just introduced as his maid owned everything he was so desperate to impress. His dream company, his future, his entire identity. Bianca's grip loosened. Her face had gone almost gray. Aurora's expression did not change. "And tonight," she said quietly, "I am no one's maid." The line cracked through the air like lightning. Then she turned fully toward Ryan. "My husband. She continued, her voice, still calm, but edged with steel, "is in this room." Every head turned in unison. "Ryan Cole," she said, holding his gaze, "please don't bother coming to the stage. I think everyone can see you just fine from where you're standing." A low murmur rolled through the crowd. Ryan took a step back. "A man," Aurora went on, "who looked at his wife tonight and introduced her as his maid. A man who then introduced another woman," her eyes flicked to Bianca, "as his future wife." Anger began to replace shock on the faces around them. Somebody hissed under their breath. Someone else shook their head. "In this company," Aurora said, "character matters. Integrity matters. How you treat people, especially those you think are beneath you, matters." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Ryan tried to speak. "Aurora, this is not your turn," she said sharply. He stopped. "I can forgive many things," she continued. "I can forgive arrogance. I can forgive the way you belittled me at home. I can even forgive your affair." Bianca flinched. "What I cannot and will not forgive," Aurora said, "is deliberate public humiliation. You did not just disrespect me. You disrespected our marriage. You disrespected every employee here by dragging your infidelity and cruelty into a room meant to celebrate their work." She let the words sink in. "And I will not allow someone like that to represent my company." Her next sentence was a verdict. "Ryan Cole." She said each word measured and sharp, effective. "Immediately, your employment with Luminera Media is terminated. You are no longer welcome in any division of Luminera Holdings." Gasps. A few people actually clapped once in stunned disbelief before covering their mouths. Ryan staggered as if she'd physically struck him. "Aurora, please," he stammered. "You can't. This is my whole career." "You built your entire career on a lie," she replied. "On posturing, on using people, on stepping on the woman who loved you. You did this to yourself." His mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Aurora turned to Bianca. "And you, Ms. Hayes," she said, "have shown a remarkable ability to chase advancement through flirtation and boundary crossing instead of a performance. This company rewards talent and integrity, not home-wrecking and manipulation." Bianca's eyes filled with tears. "Effective immediately," Aurora said, "your employment contract is void. Security will escort you both off the premises." She nodded once toward the side doors. As if choreographed, 2 security officers stepped into the ballroom and walked toward Ryan and Bianca. The crowd parted, watching with a mixture of fascination, disapproval, and a quiet, fierce satisfaction. "Aurora, please," Ryan begged as the guards reached him. "Just talk to me. I can fix this. I didn't know who you were. You tricked me. I gave you a chance to love me without my title," she said. "You proved that you only love what my title could give you." Bianca sobbed, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She tried to cling to Ryan. He tried to shake free. In the end, neither of them had a choice. Security escorted them through the ballroom in a walk of shame that felt like it lasted 1,000 years. Every eye followed them. Every whispered conversation added another layer of weight to their guilt. When the doors swung shut behind them, the room exhaled as one. Aurora lifted the microphone again. "I apologize for the disruption," she said, voice returning to its controlled, professional cadence. "Tonight is about this company's achievements and your hard work, not about one man's lack of character." She drew in a breath. "So let's do what we came here to do. Let's celebrate. Let's honor the teams that make this place more than just a logo. And let's remember that Luminera stands for something bigger than any individual, including me." Someone started clapping, then another. Within seconds, the entire ballroom erupted into thunderous applause. This time, it wasn't just for the company. It was for her, for the woman who had stood on that stage, reclaimed her crown, and refused to let anyone ever put her in the role of maid again. The applause followed Aurora down the stage steps like a wave. She expected to feel hollow, numb, shaking. Instead, she felt light, as if someone had handed her back the pieces of herself she'd given away and said, "Here, these were always yours." Bennett met her at the bottom of the steps. "You handled that with more grace than most leaders I've known," he said quietly. His eyes shone not with pity, but with pride. "Your father would be proud." Aurora swallowed the sudden lump in her throat. "Thank you," she said. "I didn't plan to do this in public, but he left me no choice." "He revealed who he is," Bennett replied. "You just turned on the lights." The rest of the night blurred into handshakes and conversations. Senior managers approached her with apologies for not recognizing her sooner. Department heads offered loyalty. Younger employees looked at her with something like awe. One junior analyst, Landon, came up, cheeks flushed, glass in hand. "I just wanted to say thank you," he blurted. "Not just for firing him, for showing up. We always wondered if the founder's daughter was real. Tonight you didn't just show us you exist. You showed us what leadership looks like." Aurora smiled. "Thank you, Landon. What team are you on?" "Digital strategy," he said. "If you ever need someone on a new project, I'd be honored." "Send me an email," she said. "Let's talk next week." He nearly bounced away. Later, as the band resumed playing and dinner was served, Bennett gestured toward the head table. "Aurora," he said, "your seat is here." For a moment she hesitated. She had spent the whole night in the shadows, in the corner, by the buffet. But that wasn't who she was anymore. She took the seat at the center of the table. The shift was almost audible. People adjusted mentally to the sight. Aurora Lee, not as rumor or myth, not as air on paper, but as the living, breathing head of the company. Bennett leaned over. "What happens now?" he asked. Aurora looked around the ballroom, at the employees, who now saw her clearly, at the company her father built, at the future, humming beneath the chandelier light. "Now," she said, lifting her glass, "we build something better." And she meant every word. The morning after the gala, Austin felt different. Or maybe Aurora did. She woke, not to dread or obligation, but to quiet that didn't feel heavy. Sunlight filtered through the penthouse windows, painting soft lines across hardwood floors. Her kitchen, sleek, modern, high above the city, looked nothing like the cramped, spotless one she'd scrubbed in the suburbs. She brewed her own coffee, leaning against the counter, and watching the city come alive. Her phone lit up with notifications, news alerts, industry articles, emails from board members. Mystery. Heiress reveals identity fires. Husband in live gala drama. Aurora Lee returns inside Luminara's power shift. She opened a few headlines, skimmed them without flinching. Last night hadn't broken her. It had unveiled her. At Luminara Tower, employees straightened as she walked through the lobby. Conversations quieted, then resumed at a softer pitch. No one mistook her for a maid now. On the executive floor, Bennett waited with a stack of folders. "Morning, Aurora," he said. "Legal updates, HR reports, and..." He handed her a sealed envelope. "The board's unanimous resolution," he explained. "They want you officially named as active CEO, not just controlling owner. No more interim language. No more proxies." Aurora held the envelope for a moment. Last night had been her reclaiming. Today would be her coronation. "I'll sign it after the meeting," she said. In the boardroom, a dozen seasoned executives rose as she entered. She took her place at the head of the table, not as a symbol, not as someone sitting in her father's chair, but as a leader in her own right. They went over numbers, projections, crises, and opportunities. When she spoke, offering a new digital expansion strategy, questioning an outdated partnership, challenging a lazy assumption, the room listened. Not out of obligation, but because what she said made sense. At the end, the CFO lingered by the door. "I'll admit," he said, "we weren't sure what to expect from you. But you're impressive. Aurora smiled faintly. I didn't disappear because I couldn't do this, she said. I disappeared because I needed to see the world without my last name hanging over every interaction. And now he asked. She looked out at the skyline, the river gleaming below, like a strip of molten glass. Now I'm ready to lead, she said simply. Back in her office, a spacious corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows, she finally opened the board's envelope and signed her name. Aurora Lee, Chief Executive Officer. No shaking hand, no second guessing, just a quiet promise to herself and to the building around her. She would do this differently, with strength, with clarity, with boundaries. She spent the afternoon reviewing proposals, reshuffling priorities, sending a few pointed emails that made it clear the era of coasting and politics was over. By sunset, she stepped onto the terrace outside her office. The Austin skyline glowed in shades of orange and pink. The air smelled faintly of asphalt food trucks and the river. Footsteps sounded behind her. Emily Alvarez, Senior Project Coordinator, sharp-eyed and blunt, appeared with 2 iced coffees in hand. Thought the new queen of Luminera might need caffeine, Emily said, offering one. Aurora chuckled. You're not wrong. Emily leaned on the railing beside her. The team's buzzing. They've never seen something like last night. Half of them want to put your speech on a motivational poster. Please don't, Aurora said dryly. The last thing I need is my worst night framed in the break room. Emily smiled. You turned your worst night into your best decision. That's the part they're inspired by. They clinked plastic cups lightly. To starting over, Emily said. To starting strong, Aurora replied. That night, the city shimmered with 1,000 lights reflected in the Colorado River like scattered stars. Aurora stood on the balcony of her penthouse, a mug of jasmine tea warming her hands. The breeze tugged gently at her hair, carrying up faint sounds of traffic and distant music. Austin felt alive, vibrant, electric. For the first time in years, she felt in sync with it. No shadows, no secrets, no chains wrapped around her heart. Inside her home waited quiet, warm, fully hers. Not a stage she used to hide on, not a cage someone else built around her. Her phone buzzed on the table behind her. A message from Bennett. Tomorrow's press conference is confirmed. Everything's in place, Aurora typed back. Thank you. See you in the morning. She set the phone down and tilted her head back to look at the sliver of moon hanging above the skyline, like a silver smile. It was still astonishing how far she'd come in just a few months. Once, she'd been a woman shrinking herself to fit into a life that didn't deserve her. Now, she was leading a company, commanding rooms, inspiring teams, free, confident, no longer dimming her light. Once, she'd endured a marriage built on manipulation and lies. Now she lived alone by choice. Her home wasn't silent. It was peaceful. Her thoughts drifted to Ryan, not with anger, not with longing, but with something surprisingly gentle. Closure. His downfall had been his own doing. She no longer carried his choices as a weight on her chest. No what-ifs. No, maybe he'll change. Just a chapter that had ended exactly where it needed to. She stepped back inside, past the framed photo of her parents on a side table. Her father's old leather-bound journal lay open on her desk, a page bookmarked. She sat and reread the underlined line for what felt like the 100th time. A leader is not the one who avoids storms, but the one who learns to walk through them without losing their fire. She smiled. She had walked through betrayal, humiliation, and loss. She had lost pieces of herself along the way. But on the other side, she'd found something stronger. Her fire. A soft knock sounded on the open doorway. Emily leaned against the frame, this time holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. You're still awake, Emily said. Big day tomorrow, Aurora replied. Emily set the mug down beside the journal. The team's ready, and so are you. For a moment, they stood side by side, looking out at the city through the glass. Aurora felt it then, not just relief, not just freedom. Hope. She didn't know what the future held. Maybe one day she'd fall in love again with someone who saw her fully. Maybe she wouldn't. Either way, it no longer defined her. Her worth wasn't in being someone's wife, or someone's heir, or someone's maid. It was in being herself. After Emily said goodnight, Aurora walked toward her bedroom. At the doorway, she paused, glanced back at the city, and whispered to herself, "This time, I choose my story." And she did, not as a victim, not as a background character, not as the maid in someone else's house, but as the woman who wrote the ending. If you've made it this far, I want to hear from you. Which moment hit you the hardest? The scrambled eggs, the word maid, the ballroom reveal, or the final goodbye? Tell me in the comments, tap. Like if this story kept you watching, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next revenge twist and emotional journey. Your support is what keeps these stories alive, and I can't wait to share the next one with you.